Oh, yeah, that would help. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Those were two very challenging sets of big boots to follow, I might add. But what is interesting is, and I think there's a theme through what's happening tonight, and none of us talked to each other about what we were going to really talk about. I'm here to talk about a case study on Southeast Falls Creek, but I just wanted to go back and let you know, a few weeks ago I was in Montreal for a World Design Summit. And it was architects, landscape architects, industrial designers, graphic designers, interior designers, and urban planning. And there were 6 themes that resonated through the entire week. Design for Earth, design for participation, design for transformation, design for beauty, design for sale, and design for extremes. And I think that is what you are all dealing with Falls Creek South. And so what came out of that, there was 600 sessions. I obviously didn't go to all of them, but the ones I did go to, there were a handful of themes that I heard over and over and over, irrespective of what I was going to to hear. And it was climate change, resilience, reconciliation, healthy communities, and affordability, which is interesting when you talk about design. All of these things came to the forefront. So today I'm going to talk about healthy communities, because healthy communities are really what resonates and comes to the top. So this is a quote by John Weissman and Kathleen Brasher. They are activists, professors from Melbourne, and they are well known for how they look at designing and dealing with community well-being. And I won't read that quote, but it's really everything that happens from a design standpoint for a community is integrated. So you can't just take housing as something separate. You can't take politics as something separate. You can't take the environment as something separate, or culture or social things. Everything is so interwoven. And I think that's something that we've learned for a long, long time. And I think that's something that when you're looking at the future of these lands, it's important to realize you can't take one element and pull it out and just focus on that. It all is intertwined together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the social, environmental, and cultural. I'll stick away from the economics and the political things, but we can save some of those for the end. We worked with a huge multidisciplinary team on Southeast Falls Creek. So when you think about Southeast Falls Creek, it was very similar to South Falls Creek when from the industrial standpoint. And now when you look at them together, they're very, very different. They have different characters and different qualities. One of the things that resonated that we had to work with on Southeast Falls Creek was access to nature. So we looked at huge ways of doing that, and a variety of different ways. So we looked, what resonated about that project as well was that it was a pilot project similar to South Falls Creek, and things that we could look at from a sustainability standpoint were tested at Southeast Falls Creek to see if they could be applied for other areas of the city. So there is people want to have access to nature and a wide variety of nature. On South Falls Creek, you have a lot of access to nature. It's not necessarily wilderness nature, and all of the landscapes that we have in, all of the landscapes we have in the Lower Mainland and within the unceded territories are all cultural landscapes. So a lot of them are all man-made because there's been man on the lands for a long, long time. So these are very different landscapes, very different access to nature than other areas within the city. But it's really embedded in all parts of your neighborhood here. Another one that we really focused on was access to water. I think that people want to touch the water. As False Creek has become cleaner and cleaner over the years, it's been more important. People want to get down and close to it. And it has been getting cleaner and cleaner. When I was out on Habitat Island about a month ago, we found oysters on it, which is a sign that things are getting healthy. So, and here, there's a different quality and a different character for access to the water. And so those are things that, as you're looking at the redevelopment and changing things, how do you still increase and keep that access to the water? And are there edges that can be improved from the character and quality, and what can you learn from other projects that are dealing with the seawall and sea level rise, and how can that be worked within these new areas? Another one is the urban tree canopy. So we had no, just like these lands here, it was all fill. It was a very contaminated fill at Southeast False Creek. And so one of the strategies that we used was to figure out how to get enough great quality soil so that the trees could grow large. And they have grown very large, and the canopies, the trees on the seawall and on the streets, the canopies are touching each other now. And that tree canopy is really important from an environmental standpoint. You have some amazing tree cover here on your in your neighborhood, and the trees are spectacular and they're really important, and they're embedded and woven through the entire development, which is not always what we can do nowadays with development sites with underground parking. And some of the trees are as large as some of the structures around, so it's important to remember those. We have a urban tree canopy of this area of 14.3%, and we are supposed to be getting to 18% next year and 22% in 50 years. So I have to go fast. So green infrastructure. So when we looked at integrating green infrastructure, again, this is all of the streets and the landscape areas are all intertwined so that it's a soft engineering approach and a more green engineering approach. So that's with the wetlands, the swales, all the water is cleaned. And you can then use the landscape as your engineering structures as well. But there is green infrastructure here, and there's green infrastructure in a different way. It was a green infrastructure that was planned in the 70s. And as you redo and rethink the lands, how can you introduce new green infrastructure in a way that's important? And then on the social side, I think we never really knew what was going to happen. You design spaces, but the people take them over and they create the community. So I think what is important about that is to not have it over-designed or too designed, and to have a lot of flexibility and a lot of resilience in the design, because the places, just like False Creek South here, therefore the cradle to grave, and we have to and listening to Bree come back, talking about her growing up here and then coming back was, I think, really important and resilient. And when you look at Falls Creek South here, again, the cultural, the connections to the community, the different varying types of housing, and the enclave housing, which is really important, and the connection to Granville Island. Again, a really strong connection that is so distinct, more distinct than any other neighborhood in Vancouver. The community gardens that grew over time, and the ability to look at large open spaces is important. So just a couple more slides. This is a quote from Heritage Vancouver, and this is an important cultural historic landscape. And will it change? Absolutely it will. It'll change. But I think there's something important about the character and the quality of it that resonates with so many people. And so my only advice is that somehow, as it changes, try to keep the ability, or to keep the great character and qualities there, because it is a historic landscape from that standpoint. I would say in the last 5 years, I've been to hundreds of public open houses and meetings and community development. And when I hear people talk about what's important to them, this is what's important to them. More parks to support the more density, public places that are truly public, which is dealing with inclusivity, access to nature. Will I be able to afford to live there? A place, a home that I can raise my family, and less traffic. And that's it. Thank you.